Hey everybody. Despite being a team that has preferred to run the ball during the majority of my life, Georgia Tech has still produced a bunch of great receivers over the last couple of decades. We have previously talked about the best quarterbacks and running backs that I've seen play for the Jackets, so I figured it was time to show the wideouts that I've seen play some recognition. I have whittled this list down to just 5 players to truly reward the guys who went above and beyond and were able to stand out as individuals. And dare I say, this may be the most interesting group of players we've covered on the channel so far. Stay till the end to find out why. Before we begin, I want to establish one rule for this list and also name some honorable mentions. The rule is, you must have finished your college career at Georgia Tech to be considered. This means no Eric Singleton and no Nate McCullum. Although I wish them the best of luck with whatever they're doing, and I thank them for contributing to GT football, they won't be featured today. Based on their trajectories at Tech, both of these guys would have had a great shot at making the list had they decided not to transfer, but I wanted to reserve the spots for those who finished what they started and are what I consider to be Tech men. Remember that for the future. As far as honorable mentions are concerned, both Ricky June and Brad Stewart formed what was a very nice duo when they played together. However, they just barely missed being ranked. Eric Rivers had a nice senior season for the Jackets, and I wish we could have had him for longer, but I'm not sure that just one season is enough to qualify him. The last honorable mention goes to Stephen Hill. Now, Stephen is an interesting player. During his best season, he had 820 yards on almost 30 yards a catch to go along with 5 touchdowns. These numbers, to go along with all the highlight plays he made, would almost certainly guarantee him a spot in this video. However, if you remember watching him play, Hill had a fatal flaw in his game. It seemed like for every eye-popping catch that he made, he would have an equally bad and pointless drop. With Hill, the highs were really high and the lows were really low. It was a difficult decision, but he was barely edged out by another tall and big-bodied receiver for the 5th spot in today's rankings.
When we throw it, we mean it. Touchdown, Georgia Tech.
Like the exact same play the play before, the counter option run look. You got a big wide receiver in Waller at 6'5".
Darren Waller comes in at number 5 today, and he had a very solid career at Tech. He had a nice junior season, followed up by a breakout year as a senior, where he put up some good stats and made a lot of impact plays for the Jackets during their 2014 Orange Bowl run. His play alone at Georgia Tech warrants a spot for him to make the top 5. However, it is what happened during his NFL career that really makes him stand out. And before we go any further, we are getting into some mature subject matter, so viewer discretion is advised. After finishing up at Georgia Tech, Waller was drafted as a tight end by the Baltimore Ravens in 2015. After seldomly appearing on the field for his first 2 years in the league, which included a 4-game suspension during his second year, Waller was suspended for his entire 3rd season in the NFL for violating their substance abuse policies and was eventually cut by the Ravens. And in some of these scenarios, guys are just having trouble staying away from burning trees. But for Waller, it ran much deeper than that. And based on what we know, he was dealing with some very serious obstacles in his life.
I feel like I might need some help, just kind of not telling the whole story, but just kind of putting it out there. I might need to leave, da 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 da. At that point, I was in my mind, I'm like, I am going to finish the season. I'm going to rehab my shoulder, but I'm going to purposely fail every drug test so they kick me out of the league. Damn. Because I'm too afraid or insecure to tell people that I might not want to play football anymore, or that I need to step away, or that this ain't working for me.
Now, for most people with addiction issues, especially when it comes to drugs, they unfortunately fail to recover and ultimately live a limited life and don't reach their full potential. Darren isn't most people though. After serving his suspension and getting clean through rehab, Waller was signed by the Raiders. Even just making it back to the NFL after what he went through was a massive feat on its own. But Darren took it a step further. Before his first season back in the league, then Raiders coach John Gruden made a comment during the offseason that he believed that Waller was the best offensive player on the team. And he was right. Waller exploded for over 1,000 yards during that year and followed it up with an even better season in 2020, making his first Pro Bowl. Since then, Waller has stayed productive as a player and is still enjoying what is now a 10-year career in the NFL. In what could have gone a much different and tragic direction, Darren beat the odds, and I hope he keeps doing his thing for his new team, the Miami Dolphins, this upcoming year.
Focus in a lot on Jones and Payton today. They do mark it as a first down. They get the ball quickly into space to Rutherford, and here he goes inside the 20 before he is taken down.
At number 4, we have Malik Rutherford, and his story is really interesting because he was a part of 2 very distinct periods of Georgia Tech football. He played for 2 seasons under Jeff Collins during the worst era of Tech football I know of, and he has also spent the last 3 years playing under Coach Key. During Collins' tenure, Malik had some flashes, but was mostly a rotational player, and when Key was hired to be the full-time coach, it wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for him to transfer. When coaches get fired, it's very common nowadays for lots of players to transfer out. It's just the way it goes now, and I don't think anyone would have thought less of Malik had he decided to pursue a fresh start in this situation. Malik decided to stay though, and he has made the absolute most of it. He broke out in 2023 and took his game to an even greater level in 2024 and really cemented himself as the go-to guy on third downs for Tech's offense. A couple of things really stand out about his game. First, you cannot name me a shiftier player that has ever suited up for the Jackets. We've watched Malik routinely put defenders on skates and blow by them for big gains. Second, you could really see how much swagger and a chip on his shoulder that he played with. In a lot of ways, Malik is like the Jose Alvarado of Tech football. He was always the smallest guy on the team, but he approached the game with a level of confidence and intensity that I always really appreciated. When the 2024 season ended, Malik had 1 year of eligibility left and for a very brief period decided to enter the transfer portal. Now, some people may have negative feelings about this. However, considering the situation, I understood. Eric Singleton had decided to transfer as well, and it always seemed like to me that they were really close. And Tech also brought in Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson at receiver from FIU with the intention of having them play a lot. Things around Malik were changing, and with how much pressure college athletes face during the NIL era of football, I understand when guys feel uncertain about their futures and want to explore their options. However, Malik ultimately decided to stay, and as of now, he is the all-time leader in receptions for Georgia Tech, and even more importantly, he graduated from Tech. I know there are a lot of alumni who watch the channel, and I know y'all put a lot of value in where your degree is from. A Georgia Tech degree is extremely valuable no matter what you want to do. And regardless of if Malik continues to play football or enters the traditional workforce, I think we can all say that he is better off having graduated from Tech than having not. Malik is an absolute legend in my mind and joins guys like Haynes King and Jamal Haynes as people who really led the way on the culture shift of GT football. No matter what Malik decides to do, I wish him the absolute best of luck and thank him for a great career at Georgia Tech. At number 3, we have DeAndre Smelter, and his story is so compelling because of how much he had to pivot. Smelter was a very highly touted receiver coming out of high school, so you may wonder, how did he end up at Tech? The Jackets were in the thick of the triple option era, and when it came to receivers, They had to rely on finding diamonds in the rough rather than getting the blue chip prospects. The thing is, Smelter actually went to Georgia Tech for baseball. However, after 2 years of being a pitcher for the Jackets, Smelter switched to playing football after struggling with shoulder injuries, and he immediately excelled. After a very nice junior season, he and Darren Waller paired to be the best receiver duo I've seen for the Jackets. He made so many critical plays that year, including a big catch on 4th and 15 against Virginia Tech early in the season. Had he not caught that, Tech would have gone on to lose, and who knows if that season would have still gone so well had that occurred. After that, Smelter continued to have a great season, but unfortunately suffered a serious leg injury that would end his playing career at Tech. Despite this, he ended up being selected in the 4th round of the 2015 draft by the 49ers. For me though, I wonder if that leg injury had lingered because he was out of football by 2018. Since then, DeAndre has pivoted once again and has been a quality control coach for the wide receiver position at Georgia Tech for the last few years. And he deserves a lot of credit too. Tech has done a good job of developing receivers during this time, and we will need him to keep up the good work for this upcoming season with all the new receivers we have. DeAndre is a good example of not letting adversity knock you down and being successful no matter what life throws at you. So we get to the top 2 players on this list, and obviously it's Bebe Thomas and Calvin Johnson. Both of these guys were absolutely dynamite players at Georgia Tech and were arguably even better in the NFL. We all know how great they are, and when I was making this video, I got a little bit stuck, and I was like, how am I going to rank these guys? You know, what could I really say about their careers that hasn't already been said? And when I make these videos, I script them out. You know, I do my research, I write everything I'm going to say down, and then I recite it into the microphone. But right now, I'm just talking. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm actually just looking at these highlights that y'all are looking at. And I realized that it was never really about ranking the players, right? Like, it's fun to stack them up and see how their careers compare with each other. But this was always about celebrating the players and really just paying homage to individuals who come through Georgia Tech and bona fide themselves as Tech men. You know, a lot of people who are watching this are alumni, and this applies for athletes and students. Choosing Georgia Tech is choosing to do things the hard way with the idea that you'll be better off because of it. And when you look at the 5 guys we've talked about today, they really embody that. And you can see that through the struggles that they went through and all of the adversity and how great they were despite all of that as people and as football players. Calvin and Bebe are 2 of the greatest players of all time when it comes to Georgia Tech football. And to really exemplify how great their careers were respectively, it would take entire videos to go through everything and all the necessary information. But for now, I just want to say, and especially in the case of Demarius, these guys came through Georgia Tech and they created legacies for themselves that will last far beyond their lifetimes. And we should take a lot of pride in that.